Welcome, one and all, to yet another Kings of War tournament report. It's time to deeply probe 5 games of Kings of War from A Tale of One Kingdom, a tournament put on by the Northern Kings at Element Games. And I think you can tell that that model that's taking up the majority of the thumbnail is clearly not my work, so obviously that's one of the armies I am going to have faced. And before we go any further, I think I should pop into the corner of the screen now to guide you through this journey, armed with my trusty army list and other associated documents right here. So first of all, I've been meaning to do this the last couple of tournaments, but I didn't. So I took a picture of my army beforehand so we can actually look at it in all its glory before we get onto the actual game pictures. So you can see it is goblins, and yes, that is a 4th troll horde. Previously, I only had 3. I've painted up a 4th one. The intention was, because there's a tournament that I may decide to attend this summer that's 2,600 points. So I thought, maybe I should get another horde of trolls in there. I think that would be a reasonable amount of trolls for that point level. But then, at the previous tournament, which you may remember I won at a lower point level with 3 troll hordes, so that was quite a troll-heavy list there. I thought, well, that seems to work, so why don't I get this troll horde finished in time for this 2,000 point tournament and wheel it out and see how it does here. So it's quite a balanced list though, despite that. So the 4 troll hordes, which you can see in the middle, 1 with Dwarven Ale, 1 with the Chalice of Wrath, 1 with the Staying Stone, the usual 3 items. I didn't have any points left over to give an upgrade to the final troll horde, so that one is just naked. The 2 Fleabag Rider Sniffs units, as usual. 2 regiments of those. The triple trombone, can't leave home without triple trombone at 2,000 points. Then we've gone for the 3 rock lobbers, not 4. I feel like that's slightly too much and you can't fit as much as you would like into the list with the 4th one also in there. And the 4th rock lobber that you can take is Grogger's Great Lobber, which is also more expensive. So I don't feel like it's worth that extra expense. So 3 of those. Then we've got Flaggit with the Diadem of Dragonkind, as usual. You can see him on the right of that goblin horde there. And then there's a Wiz. Now, this Wiz has the Inspiring Talisman, and he also has Guiding Light, so that once per game I can kind of illuminate an enemy unit and make it easier for the rock lobbers to hit them. So that's just 15 points. So other than using that, he's just an inspiring small lightning bolt platform. So we'll see how that works out. Troll Bruiser with the Blade of Slashing, the usual upgrade that I take on him. It seems to be very efficient. And the Goblin Horde in the middle is Grogger's Goons. So lots of regenerating fighty units here, and lots of shooting accompaniment. So we'll see if all that succeeds as planned. So there's 6 units there with regeneration. All of them, they're the fighty core of the army, and everything that doesn't want to fight does not have regeneration. So some nice close-ups here on the trolls. The new unit is the one with the little rabbit being taken for a walk there on the left of the picture. And some more tasty close-ups. The wizard there at the bottom left is maybe my favourite model that I've converted for this army, but he doesn't see that much action because there's a lot of other choices in the goblin list that are very tasty. The 3 trombones there. And on to game 1. So when I was looking at the lists before the event online, after they were posted, there were 4 or 5 where I thought, I think my list would struggle against that. And some of those were scenario dependent though, because there's certain armies where, for example, if I wouldn't want to move, if I felt I could comfortably outshoot them, but the scenario required me to advance towards their half of the table, then that's kind of a bad combination. And certain armies wouldn't want to move against me because they have such a shooting superiority over me that if the scenario required them to move, then that would be beneficial. And obviously there are armies that don't have a lot of units for taking objectives, so scenarios where you have to be dotted around the board a lot, and other issues like if an army is really fast, then who are they going to put loot tokens on and things of that nature. So with all those things in mind, there were 4 or 5 armies that I was wary of, and one of them is actually the army that I came up against in the first round, but this is a very scenario dependent one because it has several vanguarding forest shambler units. So I think it's 3 hordes and 2 regiments. So that is a lot of vanguarding, killy badness. And there's lots of plus speed items. There's the item that gives them extra speed, there's the item that gives them extra speed on the charge, there's a formation that gives them more speed, and there's also lots and lots of surge in the army list as well. There's about surge 25 available, so if they're positioned correctly, they can have multiple units charging you in turn 1 if you deploy near the front. So my strategy against that is obviously going to be avoid that and deploy everything near the back edge, which you can see I've done with this setup here. But it is the push scenario. So at some point I am going to want to get into the enemy half of the table, and we'll see if that is going to be possible or not. You can see where the center is. There's a little red token in the middle. That's the push token that's directly in the middle of the table. You can see that on top of that hill that the enemy are already on after the vanguard phase, and the rest of their army is clearly advancing up on the right there. And you'll see where the tokens are in a minute. So here's my setup. This is my left flank first of all. We've got 2 of the trombones and some sniffs and the flagget and some trolls there. And there's not much of the enemy force on this side. So you'll see what they're designed to counter in a minute. Then in the middle we've got Grogger's Goons with the tokens. They're the only unit that's in any way advanced forward. And that's because, first of all, they're carrying the tokens, so they're going to want to get forward as fast as possible. They don't want to be held up too long carrying them because they just won't make it to the other side by the end of the table. And also, it's having 1 unit there, it's kind of a little bit of bait, you could say. Do the enemy want to actually attack that unit and then get countercharged by everything else? Probably not. And also, I've significantly out-dropped my opponent here as well. So I was able to position things later. So you can see there is 2 troll units there, one of them back, one of them slightly further forward. So the Bruiser and the Trolls are fairly safe from any surge shenanigans, and I think I deployed them towards the end, possibly. So you'll see that there's nothing really to threaten the position they're in anyway, and 1 troll unit behind, because I would like to advance down the middle, but depending how much my opponent commits to my right flank, then I may want to just turn them straight right and head in that direction. So you'll see what they're worried about shortly. Got the Wizard behind the big impassable piece of terrain along with some trolls facing directly there to the right, a trombone, 2 of the rock lobbers and some more sniffs. So on this side of the enemy we've got all three actually of the hordes of forest shamblers. We've got one of the regiments. There's a tree herder, I think it is, the one who is like the hero of the forest shamblers. There's 2 of them. One of them is carrying the tokens. In the middle, there is the other regiment of forest shamblers, and there's Blaine on a horse, who is one of the only shooting attacks in this army. I think there's another spell that's once per game as well. And a horde of Elohai allied in. So that's where my tokens are, on Grogger's Goons, and all my opponent's tokens are on one of the tree herders. Because obviously the forest shamblers can't be surged while they're carrying tokens, so it would be probably a bad move to have them on there, and also it would be slowing down one of the big hard-hitting units. We've got Raphael and Russell in the chat so far. Hello there. So turn 1, and my opponent gets the first turn after those vanguard moves, so had I not deployed far back, then I could be getting charged by several things here, or surged into at the very least. So the Elohai are moving up to threaten, but I've got a lot of breath attacks and other shooting attacks over on that side to counter them. I'm hoping to kill them fairly early and then kind of sweep through the middle with my Grogger's Goons. You'll see when we have the next wide shot, I'll go into more detail on my overall strategy here. So the Forest Shambler Regiment there want to just pick up that token and then start running away, which is probably a good plan. Keep it away from me, and there's Blaine. So over here, there is going to be some movement there, but they're not too keen to get into charge range of, for example, my trolls that are behind the piece of terrain there. They obviously don't want to get into that, and they can't advance too far because they're all shambling. So they're relying on surging to get extra distance there. So there's how it looks. So my plan here, you can see with those 2 troll hordes and the Bruiser on the right-hand side of my centre, I'm hoping that they can just advance forward, and then the Bruiser maybe will go with Grogger's Goons, and that troll horde down at the bottom as well will advance forward on the centre. Those trolls don't have any terrain blocking them, so they can get there quite easily. Grogger's goons will take a bit longer, but by the end of the game I should be able to get to the middle, and I'm only really fighting Blaine and those Forest Chamblers. I would expect that I'll be able to kill the Elohai with all the shooting I've got down there in the bottom left. So the two troll hordes next to the terrain, with their turn dice on it, with the wizard looking at them, the one behind the other, those two troll hordes would like to turn right and just block off the enemy advance. So I'll have the 3 tokens that I'm holding and the one in the middle, hopefully, if it goes to plan. So I won't even have to care too much about the enemy's tokens, because that would still be enough to win. So we'll see if that works. Turn 1 for me. So you can see that I'm following through with that strategy a bit. So the Bruiser and Grogger's goons are heading over towards the middle with the trolls. I think the trolls are out of charge range. And over here, everything just gets into position to attack the Elohai, apart from the Trombones, who can't get in range yet, because they're too slow. Over here, the Trombone is moving forward, so it can shoot, and everything else is going to take aim, and they delete the Forest Shambler Regiment, the small unit that was there, but the hordes are still intact. One of them takes 6 damage, though. So it made a decent start damaging them, and there's how it looks now. So you can see, I believe those trolls next to the giant rock in the right, at the top, in the right flank there, are out of charge range of the Forest Shamblers, but of course they can be surged. But I'm not too concerned if one of those unit commits and goes in there, because I would then be able to counter with either surviving trolls, which they could very well survive a charge from Forest Shamblers in the front, or the unit of trolls behind. So I'm feeling pretty good about the way this is set up now. Turn 2. So these Shambler hordes have moved forward towards my little artillery battery in the corner there, and the Trombone, and they're going to do some surging action now to try and get one of those into the fight before they get shot. And there's how they're positioned. There's a character at the back there as well. I can't remember what that one on the horse actually is, but I'm sure it's some kind of support character. Over here, you can see that those Shamblers there, the regiment, have picked up the token and they're starting to back away. The Elohai aren't committing themselves yet, which may be wise. So, with a bit of surge action, this horde of Forest Shamblers get into the sniffs. So it's a risk, because if that unit is inspired, and if they don't kill them, the Trombone will just have to move out the way, and then the trolls will be going into that flank. So is it going to pay off? They do 7 damage and do not remove them or even waver them. So that's going to be bad news for that unit. That's going to get flank charged by trolls. So you can see that it was an obvious trap, but sometimes you think, well, it's a trap, but the reward will be worth it if it pays off, so I'm going to go for it anyway. And it has not paid off for my opponent here. And that's how it looks. You can see some human hands at the top of the table there. This is some red hot excitement here. Turn 2 for me. So, obviously, the sniffs and the trolls in the flank were enough to deal with that Forest Shambler horde, and then turn to face the rest of them. The Trombone just goes up and gets in the face of the others and starts chipping away damage on them. I don't think the Rock Lobbers can do much at the moment. I think that unit's too close for them, possibly. Then, this area here is where you can see Grogger's goons on the right there. So this is my left flank, and everything's moved up so they can keep targeting the Elohai, try and shoot them off. The Trombones can't get in range yet, but they're working their way up slowly. And 3 damage onto the Elohai so far, so quite disappointing. I would like to have got more damage on them at this point, because I don't want them supporting the middle, but you can see it's looking very healthy. That centre there, I've got lots of units intact here. So we'll see how this goes. I'm not sure if it's a mistake exactly, but I will learn that I've left one of the War Trombones in charge range of Blaine here. But it's kind of impossible not to do that unless I just don't move them forward for the rest of the game, because they're only slow. So they would just never be able to shoot if I was obsessed with keeping them out of charge range. Also, my Lobber in the middle has not managed to hit anything yet, I think. Turn 3 for the enemy. So Blaine is going to go for one of the Trombones. Not overly concerned by that, because it can't obviously carry any tokens. And the Alohi decide to go into the Sniffs, so I'd expect both those units to die, but then I'll be able to turn around and shoot them, and it gets them out of the way of where I'm trying to get to, which is the middle with those Shamblers running away with the token. So, this horde of Forest Shamblers probably wisely decide not to attack the Trombone, because that would have left them open to be charged by Trolls and Sniffs, so instead that falls to the... I think he's a... Is it Tree Herder? Is that what they're even called? Anyway, that guy, he charges into the Trombone, so he can then overrun and block in the Trolls a bit. These ones go into the Trolls that I've kind of laid down the gauntlet with there, which is okay. I'd expect them to survive the first round. And these guys here, I think this is lots of surging. They kind of sidestep the Trombone and then they surge into the Trolls, which is a nice move, but again, I'd expect Trolls unhurt and inspired to survive that. The Alohi, as expected, kill off the Sniffs. The Trombone dies as well, of course. Trolls take some damage, but are fine, as expected. That Trombone is killed as well, as expected. And these Trolls also survive, so everything went pretty much as you would assume it would there. So I'm quite confident in how this side is going, but it doesn't bring me closer to my enemy's tokens that he's carrying. But again, that's not too big of a concern at the moment, because I think the middle's looking good. So even now you can see I've definitely got a numbers superiority, despite a couple of units being killed off. I've got more meat and meat capable of carrying stuff. So, turn 3 for me. Double charge into those Forest Shamblers and they're dead as well. But of course we're still a little bit boxed in. And over here. So I decide that chasing down that unit is the main priority here. And it could have been a mistake, this. So Grogger's goons decide they're going to drop the tokens and go up onto the hill, intentionally exposing their flank to the Alohi, which I'm fine with, because the Alohi have taken some damage already. And if they charge into that flank, even if they kill them, they're going to get charged by Trolls, which is fine by me. Because if they stay where they are, they'll get charged by the Trolls on the left, and if they overrun to get out of the arc and end up on the hill, then they'll be charged by the Trolls carrying the tokens there. Either way is fine by me. And the Bruiser just positions himself to look at the Forest Shambler Regiment that are carrying the token there. And you can see that the Flaggit has moved round to diadem them a bit as well. They're out of Rocklobber sight at the moment, so I'm just having to chase them down. I decided that preserving Grogger's goons wasn't as important as chasing down that unit and trying to lure the Alohi into somewhere I can charge them with my Trolls, because they can just dance around and threaten flanks a lot. So I'm just offering them one here. And not much done with that Diadem of Dragonkind. And the Trombone puts a bit of... I'm not sure if it actually damages the Alohi, but it has a go. And turn 4 for my opponent. The All Forces of Nature. So, did I even mention that it was Forces of Nature before the game? I think that should be pretty self-explanatory with the fact that there's so many Forest Shamblers. So, this guy is hiding. Doesn't want to get charged, and probably wise. And over here, you can see that this fight is rumbling on between the Forest Shambler Horde and the Trolls. I would hope this Trolls could survive another round, but it's not a guarantee by any means. Blaine goes into the Flaggit. The Alohi take the bait and go into the flank of Grogger's goons, which is okay. And they also get the Forest Shamblers in the front, which is actually a bit of a bonus, because them continuing to back away probably wouldn't be the best for me. It depends where they end up, though, because it's possible that they can end up in a position where the Bruiser can't charge them, and if they backed away, maybe he could, so maybe that's the thinking there. But it keeps them closer to me. This guy's just hiding. And he actually casts a spell as well, which I think might be Drain Life on these Trolls. And after the combat, they do end up being killed. And then there's a bit of an overrun, which looks like about 3 inches there, maybe 4. So they're threatening behind my lines a bit now, but I've got things to block them off with at the moment. So Blaine kills the Flaggit. And the Grogger's Goon horde gets killed, which is an acceptable outcome. Now, I don't think the Bruiser can actually see that unit now, so he's going to have to reposition himself. That's how they end up at the end of that. So obviously they're going to get charged by trolls, so I would hope to kill them. And there's how it looks now. So I'm down units, but I've kind of sacrificed units to get into a favourable position. So I've got charge options now. So turn 4, and these guys are all positioning themselves around to attack the enemy up here. And was someone blocking in those trolls? I don't think so. I think they've just had to turn to face the action, because they're not going to affect the game too much now, because the enemy model carrying their tokens can just keep scurrying away. So look at this. First of all, I block off these guys with the wizard, just to stop him getting into the back of my very important central units. And what a disaster. Troll unit charge in, and they only do 2 damage on the Elohai. They were already on 3 damage. With trolls against Elohai, who I believe are defense 5, you would expect to do about 6 damage, I think, which would have taken them to within reach of possibly getting rid of them. But alas, nowhere near that. So they're going to survive another day, and I've put my other trolls up on the hill there, making sure that they can't be flanked by the Elohai, of course, because that would be suicide. And the Bruiser has just moved further around the hill to make sure he's going to have a line of sight on those guys. Turn 5. So, my trolls and sniffs are continuing to be blocked off by the enemy heroes, who are just throwing their lives away to protect their tokens, which is a good plan. And the wizard obviously gets charged by this unit. And the charge in here. The Forest Shamblers actually drop the token on the ground, knowing that I'm likely to win the battle there and then steal it off them if I have the chance, so they just drop it. And the Elohai counter-charge as well. And there's the token-carrying dude there on the left, who is just running away from the action, as expected. And he actually kills the sniffs with a ranged attack, I think, or one of these casters does. I think it was Critter's Call that killed them. Then, over here, the Wiz obviously gets killed, and then they overrun 6 inches. I mean, look at that massive overrun there. So they're right in the fight now, these guys, and they've been healed up as well. And the Bruiser is charged by Blaine and gets wavered, which is very unfortunate. Not wildly outrageous, though. So the trolls take a little bit of damage there, but they're fine. And the Elohai waver the trolls with the Dwarven Ale, which is good. And, of course, that unit on the hill, those trolls, can actually see the flank of the Elohai now. So look at that. The way they're positioned